Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and it's time to cover Mark Rosewater's Odds and Ends article, or articles, depending upon how quickly this goes. He did do part 1, and I was waiting for part 2, so they're both up, so we'll see how it goes. I skipped the really dumb questions with really dumb answers, so, who knows, it'll be a surprise even to me. So this is the series where he tries to, he'll say answer questions from random people in the community on Twitter that follow him, so in other words, not random people from the community. But he does go for the harder questions and tries to kind of defend the questionable things in the set. I can almost respect that, but he tends to just gaslight people and lie, so I guess we're right back to 0 on the respectometer. But this one should be pretty easy to defend. It's the D&D set. It was pretty good. I mean, Delina, what the hell was that? Still not a fan of the Vorpal sword, but it's not like I'm, losing games to it. And that's the important distinction here that I want to point out. I mean, there's cards I don't like because they're bad cards, and then there's cards I don't like because they're bad cards and they're affecting the standard meta horribly. Or the 2022 Q meta, which in my opinion is standard right now. Oh, I left Ikoria and Eldraine far, far, far in the dust, and then shifted in reverse and ran them back over. So let's jump into it with this extremely unusual question. Why no tribal for the class enchantments? And he's referring to not what we would call tribal, but the actual spell type tribal. So we used to have like tribal sorceries and stuff. Let me answer that for Mark. Why the hell would they do that? I haven't read Mark's answer yet. I wonder if he actually is going to say this. Oh, he says for the most part, we've stopped using the tribal card type. That's like the nicer version of what I just said. And then he even reminds people, although we still often do tribal themes, like themes involving creature types. Yes, all sharing a creature type is what we call tribal now. So, I mean, even if they did reprint it, it would be confusing because people would be like, oh, tribal. Oh, but it doesn't have to do with a creature type. I don't get it. But then, like, when they printed it, it kind of was, but, like, only in the flavor of it. And it's just, why would they do this? So then he mentions a bunch of other times where they, like, almost did it or kind of did it, but didn't call it that, and whatever, who cares? Next up, when creating the class cards, was this understood to be a one-shot mechanic, or can the card type be expanded for future content? We should just call this Desolator guesses what Mark Rosewater is going to answer, because once again, I didn't read these ahead of time. And I'm actually covering the answer with my copy of Audacity as I record this. I think he's going to say, we intended it to be one shot, but we'll look at it for the future, adapting it to some other lore. Because that's what he says about literally every single card invention ever. All right, he says, there are 2 layers to class enchantments. First is the special flavor of the classes. Well, yeah, duh. Second is the structure of an enchantment that boosts the player over time. Yeah, that's why, I mean, they were just kind of adapted sagas, and everybody loves sagas. So it's like, it's pretty clear why they did it. And I like them. I mean, there's, 1 or 2 that get a little annoying, but they're pretty appropriately powered. They're slow, they build up over time, and they give you something to do when you're not, or when you are top decking, when you're not pulling anything else. Like you're just top decking lands or whatever. It's like, well, I could throw some mana into this at least and do something. I mean, the same goes for like activated abilities on creatures, but creatures are really easy to kill. So overall, I think it was a wonderful thing that they made. So, he says the first is narrow, so there's not a lot of space left. That's not true. You could adapt it to anything. Yes, Magic does have classes that don't show up in D&D, so there's a little space there. The second shows a lot more promise. I'm actually wondering, hold on, I gotta check something. Oh, it actually is enchantment-class. I thought they were referring to them as class cards because it's in the name. I didn't realize they actually put it on the type line. So you could not just adapt it to absolutely anything. You couldn't just call it like a curse or something, because that wouldn't be a class. Okay. So I'm going to kind of revise my answer, except, I mean, it's pretty clear what he's already saying. He's saying, well, maybe, but maybe. So he says the second shows a lot more promise. Obviously, the second being just the structure of an enchantment that boosts the player over time. So they might make something functionally identical. I mean, it's all just level up. I mean, it's not a, ooh, they made a new class thing. It's a level up card. Come on, guys. But it affects things outside of itself. I'm not sure any of the original the level up cards did that because they were all creatures, I think. I don't know. I've never seen a non-creature level up one, so I shouldn't say that. But, so yeah, are they going to make level up on an enchantment in the future? Probably. I mean, come on. So he says, if you ask me about the greatest chance for the future of this mechanic, it would be to flavor it as some additional way the player might grow more efficient over time. Maybe we keep the subtype class, maybe not. Oh, okay. So basically, like, maybe not because it was a one-off, but we'll try because it's interesting. Like, that's literally exactly what I said. I'll call that a good guess. Next up, we've got, why are the classes not enchant player? it would have really helped sell the flavor. That's actually a good question. I mean, it would still be on the battlefield, kind of, because I think you as the player are considered on the battlefield, or it's like it's in a reachable zone or something. I'm not going to get into the rules on that, but basically what I mean to say is it would absolutely change nothing. Let's see, my prediction, Mark is going to tell me what it would change within the rules, and I'm wrong. All right, the design team did consider it. Here are the two biggest strikes against it. One, the text boxes were already crowded. Oh, I should have guessed that. An enchant player would add extra text. I really should have actually guessed that. And then number two, while we usually design enchant players to go on either you or the opponent as a default, that's true. In fact, usually it's the opponent, usually it's a curse. They're usually designed so that on some of them you'd occasionally do the opposite. That is true. Sometimes you would want to curse yourself. I'm gonna look at Amon Ket. And the design team couldn't find any reason you'd stick one of these on the opponent. Also, let me just add, that would make no sense. Although, oh my god, would it be funny? They would have literally turned it into Plane Chase if it had like a pro and a con. You know, because like monks are, you know, they do all their monk stuff, but then they can't use weapons. Well, until 5th edition, but we don't talk about that. What about hand wraps? Shut up, I make an example. Like, if they had, like, Paladin or Cleric or something, and I threw that on someone, and then they couldn't cast sorceries, only instants or something, but then the upside is, like, all their creatures get stronger or whatever, I would absolutely throw that on an opponent under the right circumstances. They pull out 1 blue and 1 red land, and congratulations, you just got promoted to Paladin. Have fun not casting anything. Okay, most of those in that deck are instants, but some are sorceries. That would have been cool, and in fact, every class does have pros and cons, and all we got for the classes were pros. So that actually would have been interesting, but I mean, we gotta go back to number 1. It wouldn't have fit on the damn card, so you know, it is what it is. We have enchantments that don't attach to the player that are basically curses right now anyway, so I mean, I was gonna say I hope they come back, but they're here now, so like whatever. The only thing is, in multiplayer Commander, you can hit everybody because it'll say when an opponent draws a card, they take 1 damage or lose 1 life or whatever. I love, slow drain away curse cards, enchantment cards, interesting stuff like that, even interesting artifacts, because it takes it away from just creature versus creature, which is kind of inherently boring. Anytime you go outside just creatures on the battlefield and do something extra and have like, I wouldn't consider like a curse card that pings you for 1 every upkeep, an alternate win condition. But it kind of is, to the extent that like it's actually good, unlike, get to 35 life and win, which rumor is that card's about to be banned. So anyway, this video is brought to you by cucumbers. Not really, I just want to talk about cucumbers. So I just sold something to some old dude on Facebook Marketplace. He just showed up, paid me a bunch of money, gave him his stuff. And he's like, hey, you got a nice garden? I'm like, yeah, want some cucumbers? Okay. There are 2 responses that a person gives you depending upon if they have their own garden or not. It's either, oh, homegrown tastes way better than the store because they're not shipped in, half ripe from across the world. Non-GMO, pesticide-free, full organic, tasty cucumbers. Yeah, sign me up. Throw them all in the backseat of my car. Or from people with gardens, you get what he said, which is, oh, no. You pretty much at this time of the year, mid-August, you get to the point where you're like, if I see 1 more cucumber, I'm going to commit a war crime. I just ate another one, okay? They are tasty, but like cucumbers aren't that great, okay? They're not carrots, they're not beans, which I also just ate this morning. And my plants, they just won't stop, guys. They won't stop growing and giving cucumbers. I don't want any more cucumbers. Why won't they stop this cucumber torture? And yeah, they're like way too big to pickle in case you're about to say that. So anyway, shout out to cucumbers. Unless you're a gardener, then I probably just gave you cucumber PTSD. So back to the article. So the next tweet at Mark was JCP, that's their display name, and it's at One Epic Pug, which, I mean, okay, but I assume JCP is JC Penney's official Twitter account, so kind of weird. It's not that weird. They have nothing better to do at this point. But anyway, he says, did you ever consider making the class concept into a creature aura? Why would they do that? The creatures all almost universally across the board already have a class. Like what are you like dual classing them, or do you take like something that just says creature human and now they're a paladin, or like now it's a paladin ninja, or ninja's not a class. I don't know, warrior, is that one? Oh, now you're a wizard druid, because that happens. I mean, Baldur's Gate 2, but still. I don't even need to look. He's going to say, no, it was built to be a mix between Saga and Level Up. I guarantee you that's what he's going to say. All right, revealing it. It says, yep. The class enchantments evolved from the design team, seeing if they could bring back the Level Up mechanic from Rise of the Eldrazi. I half expected it to be that direct, but I also half didn't, so I'm actually a little bit surprised. All right. As they were playing around with tweaking level up, they came to the realization that the creatures weren't supposed to be the ones who leveled up, the players were. Well, I don't know what he means by supposed to. I mean, you could go either way. If it's from Rise of the Eldrazi, it's, quote, supposed to be the creatures, but if they already had like classes in mind, like let's do something with the D&D classes, then obviously it's you, the player, I guess, because like I said, the creatures already have classes. And most of the effects affect like you universally on the battlefield. Like it boosts all of your creatures because you're the planeswalker summoning them. And it, gains life, which is your life total. So I guess I see what he's saying there with like the initial design. It was supposed to be you. So he says, I'm highly skeptical that they ever even made aura versions, that would go on a creature, as that contradicted the motivation for making the class enchantment in the first place. So he actually didn't mention sagas. I'm actually surprised because that was like a 10 out of 10 with the community. People love sagas. And this is just, that was free progression over time and like time delayed bombs. Couple of them I hated, though, obviously. They went way too far with them. But also, boy, did they not work with Devotion. But Devotion was dead on arrival. They murdered that. This is just sagas, but you pay for it. So it's like on your own time and technically a little bit slower in theory. It eats more mana total, but, I was going to say they're more powerful. Honestly, compared to some of the sagas out there, they really aren't. They really actually kind of went overboard with some of the sagas. Now, some of them were weak as hell. So I think this time, with all the classes pretty much across the board, they dialed it into a proper power level and then just weakened it across the board by making people pay mana for it. So they took something, that they went too far with, but that was generally popular, and they powered it down a little bit, and now people love it. There you go. Something to learn there. Just wanted to point that out. Here we go. This is the one I wanted to know. Commander de Bolsio says, are more dungeons going to come out? My guess is that he's going to say in standard, like during this rotation, no. But as soon as this leaves to the eternal formats in modern, yes, they're going to throw it into like a commander deck or something. I don't think he's going to come out and just say it. Like he's going to say, oh, probably, oh, we want to, that kind of stuff. Because they don't reveal something, 2-3 years ahead of time. All right, let's read it. He says, holy crap, he wrote a book about this. Between Adventures in the Forgotten Realms and its ancillary products, there are 3 dungeons, Mad Mage, Fandelver, and Tomb of Annihilation. I don't know why you said ancillary products. They're all in standard. Why only 3? The main reason, first is design space. Oh, whatever. There are only so many small incremental effects, and we wanted each dungeon to feel distinct from the others. Yeah, I mean, if they would have tried to make another 1 or 2, they probably could have made them distinct, but then they would have risked them being overpowered or having too much synergy with another deck. Like, they could have one where it's like, a path to the astral sea, and you just sit there and gain life, and resurrect creatures. That might have been horribly overpowered. So I think what they did with like upsides, downsides, lack of synergy, even left-right stuff where it contradicts itself, it was neat, but it wouldn't just take a deck and light it on fire. So I think he's saying, oh, we couldn't have come up with more ideas, but that's absolute BS. They couldn't have come up with more ideas that would have actually been fair and balanced, I think is what he should have said. So he says, every dungeon makes Venture more powerful. I didn't immediately see what he meant by that, but he says, the first time you venture into a dungeon, you have 3 different effects to choose from. If we made it more, then Venture would be more powerful because it would be more flexible. Aha! I kind of hinted at that, sort of, in a roundabout way, almost. Shut up, I'm taking credit for it. So each time we make an additional dungeon, it gives you an additional option, which makes Venture stronger. Will we ever make additional dungeons in the future? I won't say no, because there's definitely a future I can imagine where we do, but I do want to stress that it's a high bar. For starters, it's a set that requires Venture being in the set. Not necessarily. You could just add dungeons. You could just be like, oh, the tokens are dungeons. It has nothing to do with what we threw it in. They could make Modern Horizons 3 and just have 3 more dungeons, and then have absolutely nothing in the set do anything with Venture. I mean, who would complain? It gives you 3 extra dungeons, It's like extra Plane Chase cards. Take it or leave it. You don't have to play with it. Another little leak here. Plane Chase is coming back. It's going to be in, allegedly, one of the upcoming Commander products, but not for a while. Worst kept secret ever. I bet 90% of you already knew that. So then he goes on to say, well, it's D&D themed, so like, when are we going to do that again? Not true. Any plane could have a dungeon. I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot of crossover here. There's magic, there's loot, there's adventuring parties. I mean, I'm literally describing Zendikar the last time we were there. It was literally a treasure hunt. Well, and then even more literally, Ixalan had treasure hunts. I mean, come on, like, pirates could do dungeons. It doesn't all have to be Caribbean. I mean, there's probably caves in the Caribbean. Hell, anything could be a dungeon. A Spanish fort could be a dungeon. I don't know what set they would possibly do a Spanish fort in. Oh, and he does say it. If we do it and power it up, it'll be when it leaves standard so that it doesn't screw with standard. There you go. Oh, I'm killing these. Next, it just says this tweet is unavailable. So apparently it got featured and then the person deleted it. Like, what? I'm not even surprised. This actually happens pretty much every time. So he filled it in manually. He says, green and treasures. On the safe side, green cares about mana, but treasures don't feel green. Question, are there any reasons other than it creating mana that set treasures secondary to green? Do I just have a bad memory, or am I like considering sets outside of D&D, but like treasures are black-red, right? Am I just wrong here? Like, you almost never see treasures in green. I mean, there's that one $35 dragon, most expensive card in the set. Other than that, I can't name another card in green that brings out a treasure. Not saying there isn't one, there probably is, but like, really? The secondary color of treasures is green? Sure. I can see why they deleted the tweet. So Mark says, I'm not even going to guess at this, I have no idea. Treasure tokens are primarily in red because it's the color that cares more about one-shot bursts of mana. Oh, I didn't even think about that, that's true. They're secondary in green. No, they aren't, because it's the color most connected to mana. Yeah, but via lands. It's not connected to mana, it's connected to lands. I mean, if you want ultra high levels of mana, I'd almost say black through necromancy because it got the most X spells. Maybe still red, but okay, whatever. So let's see. It has the easiest time providing access to other colors of mana. Meanwhile, green is by far number 2 in what treasure tokens do, which is why it's seconded there. Oh, so is it big on treasure spending? I didn't even consider that. I just went with treasure generation. Okay. Yeah, there's probably a lot of cards in green that care about treasure spending. Okay. So let's examine the flavor issue, since I think that's more where this disconnect is coming from. I know we most often portray treasure as something like gold coins, but it's a broad term that can apply to many different flavors. For example, nature is full of items that are considered valuable because of their scarcity. Yes, green might not be all that interested in printing money, and yet it's called green. Anyway, but it does understand and respect that there are natural things that other people value. Green wouldn't have issue with gems or raw materials or really any natural item from which others might benefit. So creating treasure tokens with green might not be flavored like other colors' use of treasure tokens, but green can use them both mechanically and flavorfully. That is the biggest, longest cover for a flavor mismatch I've seen in my life. Okay, yeah, tree-hugging 70s hipsters who care about the environment and tie themselves to trees don't give a shit about, money. They all live in, like, communes and grow certain plants and mushrooms to, escape from and forget about their shitty life decisions. So, yeah, you wouldn't have a big chest full of gold coins, I mean... But an albino deer could be a treasure, except, you're just gonna drag that into Walmart and spend it, but then again, it's like, I never got the whole you're spending treasures as money, but then it's also mana. Like, how does that work? Look, they wanted single shot mana, okay? They just slapped the word treasure on it because of the set it was on, and then doubled down on it. Let's all just agree it doesn't make a damn ounce of sense. But I love Mark's mental gymnastics there. I give that a 9 out of 10. Hopefully he gets the gold medal in the Olympics for that. By the way, shout out to America for kicking the shit out of the rest of the world, as is usual. And it's all on top of, and despite, Russia and China almost definitely cheating for the 100th year in a row. I guess we're just superior to them anyway. Also, the women's soccer team can go to hell. Hashtag boycott Subway. No, seriously, if I see anything even vaguely green after eating this many damn cucumbers, I'm gonna eat like 2 a day. I think I might even get some kind of vitamin E poisoning. I might want to calm it down on this. But your boy ain't going to Subway, okay? If I'm going out to eat, it's gonna be some thick-ass, triple patty f***ing 1 pound burger. Who's with me? Fuck it, we're all going out for burgers tonight. Let's go! I had carrots, beans, and cucumbers for breakfast. I've never felt so simultaneously full and empty. It is the weirdest feeling eating all this like 0-calorie healthy shit. What's that? Oh, I just got word that cucumbers have pulled their sponsorship from this video. Oh, I gotta read this last part. All that said, we often use treasure tokens when they reinforce a particular flavor in a set. In other words, when it's convenient for the lore. I told you, like pirates, so which colors use them will vary greatly based on the needs of the set. Okay, I happen to know that they make the mechanics and then make the lore fit it, not look at the lore and then tailor the mechanics to fit the lore. I'm not saying they never do it. They obviously like started with class and then made the cards, you know. But that's not the usual way they do it. So him saying that as a blanket term, I don't know about that. If they're just like, we want to put some big stuff in red and a bunch of the powerful stuff costs 4 and up, what do? They're like, throw treasures at it. And then they just make it fit in the lore. I mean, like, it's more of a fixer first. It's a math thing. And then after they work out the math, they're like, okay, how do we explain this? I don't know, have it be chunks of lava or liquid gold or who cares? So in my opinion, when it comes to something as fundamental as like single-use mana, they add it first and they flavor it second. So actually, I think the majority of the time he's wrong about, oh, we add it because pirate flavor. That's not really entirely what he said, but let's move on. We've got somebody with a cute little black cat sticking his tongue out as their profile image. Cute. They ask, any broad design notes on the type breakdown, stretching Dragon and Goblin to cover Dragonborn, right? And Goblinoids while adding Tiefling and Halfling instead of, Azra and Kithkin, really? And he didn't mention Half-Elf. It seems a bit arbitrary. Now, the half-elves, they literally named him human elf. That, if anything, that's like more proper and like less of a like demeaning racial term, although just calling somebody a half-elf, it's not like you're like calling them a mudblood from Harry Potter, you know? I don't know. I've never heard it said that way, although I just gave wizards an idea. Now it'll be in the next book. You're only a half-elf. Okay, I just opened an in-private window and turned on my VPN and then Googled derogatory terms for races in D&D. And to my absolute shock, there's a Reddit post about it. And it looks like there really isn't one for half-elf, so the term probably is half-elf. Although somebody recommended half-blood or impure, which, I mean, okay, that's more of just a generic adjective than like a full racial slur or something. Oh, I love this. I brought this up so many times in the spoilers, and the first thing Mark says is, this was one of the most common questions about Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. We already know what he's going to say, right? Okay, this is like 9 paragraphs long, but we already know he's going to say, because we wanted to let people use them in Modern, we wanted synergy, we didn't want to call it a hobgoblin or a whatever, or, you know, it's non-dwarf or, you know, whatever, when people want to use them in their dwarf deck, you know, in their existing tribal decks. So he says the number one question they got was, why did we sometimes use existing magic creature types and other times use brand new ones? There are a lot of subtle issues case by case. Okay, I could have told you that. This is actually interesting. I'm going to read all this. First, if D&D and Magic use the same terminology, we tried to make use of it if we could. So, for example, if Magic and D&D both had elves and dwarves and orcs, then we'd use those. Second, if D&D used the term that in D&D was connected to an existing magic creature type, we tried to use that. For example, hobgoblins and bugbears are connected to goblins in D&D, so it seemed flavorful to just use goblin for them rather than making new terms. I mean, it's not wrong. Calling them a goblin is not wrong. It's just they're a more specific goblin. But I mean, if you think, oh no, it's got to be precise, look at the subtype cat. A tiger is a damn cat. They went way up the family tree in the animal kingdom on that one. So Dragonborn was a similar case. Dragons are an existing creature type. Dragonborn are obviously tied to dragons in D&D. I don't know how that even works. I never looked into that. And using Dragonborn as a creature type would just cause confusion with all the dragon tribal cards and make all the dragon fans sad. Told ya. That's his way of saying we couldn't use them in Modern. And Commander. So we decided to just use dragon creature type. They're dragonoids, much like Leonin are cat people, or Loxodon are elephant folk. I thought all Loxodons were subtype Loxodon. Why did he throw that one in there? I haven't seen subtype elephant on any of them. I'm pretty sure he literally just listed a contradiction. Okay, anyway. Sometimes there are creature types where Magic has made their own version of it. Magic didn't have halflings. It had Kithkin. It didn't have tieflings. It had Azra. Oh, they're in Magic? I've literally never heard of an Azra. I just thought that was something from D&D. In those cases, we chose to go with the D&D versions because it felt odd to refer to them by the Magic version. Well, why not? You're in the Magic universe. It's supposed to be a plane. So it's like that's what they... Oh, no. That's what they'd be called in their own plane, assuming that the D&D world just didn't have planeswalkers. But then again, they made famous D&D characters into planeswalkers. So let's just say getting these two worlds of lore to match up, yeah, no. So he said, yeah, just we're not going to call a halfling a Kithkin because they're not. Not all short people are the same, okay? So this also allowed us to get more D&D words onto cards. Yeah, because God forbid they put less words on a card in this stupid set. Did they even read the surveys from the customers at this point? I know from talking to people I'm not the only one who wants less words on cards. By the way, let me just remind you, this was supposed to be a core set. Yeah. So then he goes on to say there are exceptions where you got to call a beholder a beholder. So, you know, duh. Oh, here we go. If successful, will you be doing more D&D themed sets? I guarantee he's going to say, I want to, but I don't know. I'll have to talk to the team and it won't be for a while. I guarantee that's what he's going to say. He doesn't say no to anything that succeeded and was popular. Why would a company do that? Oh, people loved it. Well, we're never doing it again. Definitely. So there's a phrase I use a lot on my blog, success breeds repetition. Oh, cool. What this means is that when you do something and you get a positive response, there's a lot of momentum to do it again. The reception to that in the set so far has been very good, so that's a positive sign. Told ya. The other big thing in its favor, pardon me, is that Wizards of the Coast makes Dungeons and Dragons. So licensed products are always more complicated because you have two different companies signing off on the most major decision. And having both Magic and D&D under one roof makes that a little easier. I would pull up something you said about why like they haven't done a D&D tie-in yet from like years and years and years ago, but he just said like we don't get along and work together as much as you think. It's not like they hate each other, although they probably do. But he was just saying that for all intents and purposes, they're two different companies. Like they might see each other at lunch, but they don't have like Magic people suddenly go over and write some lore for D&D, except that's a terrible example. They do that. That's like the one thing. I assume they both have the same accounting and purchasing and HR. Yeah, actually, I'm starting to wonder. Everybody was just like, yeah, but cross-promotion, make it work. Like, you don't even have to sign anything. You just have to do it. You just have to go talk to the other person you're building and be like, hey, we're bros, right? It's like, yeah, I met up with somebody who turned out to be my second cousin. We figured it out at a raid in Pokemon Go, and I was a little bit more lenient on what I was willing to trade to him and how much Stardust I was going to burn on it. You know, because, you know, we're second cousins, you know? It's like, I think I saw him at a wedding and then once before that at a family reunion. And I'm 34, but also he seemed really nice. So I'm just like, oh, yeah, we're a family. Okay, all right, let's make this work. Let's get this done. You know, let's sign the contract. My guess is that is exactly how this went down. So he finishes by saying, so while I can't give a definitive yes, I can say I'm optimistic. Oh my God, it's literally exactly what I just said. Yeah, the chances are high. So he started with the customers liked it, and then said it's easier because it's not third party, and then finished with because people liked it, we're going to do it. Or like, I want to, I'm optimistic or whatever. Yeah, sure, circle back around. I mean, it'll be a cross promotion for like D&D 6 or whatever, I would assume. People really like 5th though, but they're like a lot of content into that. I don't know. It really hasn't been that many years. I don't know. I hope they don't. I want to stick with 5th. So next up we've got, could you talk about any discussion the team had around adding D20 rolls as a mechanic in a black border set? Yeah, because this isn't the first time they printed it. They printed it at least once that I know of, which is the Sword of Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe in one of the other unsets, but I don't remember it. I mean, mostly they just rolled D6s in a lot of those. It was like a Krark thing, I think. So that's what they're referring to. They say, I love that it's been included, but I imagine that there were discussions around adding a mechanic that requires such a specific out-of-game object to use. I mean, that's true. I mean, you're playing at a local gaming store. I mean, I could imagine somebody doesn't get the rollable D20 in a fat pack because they bought a booster box, even though they're a casual, never play at F&M and never play in a store, only play kitchen table with their friends, and then they say, what's a D20? And then between all of their friends, also none of them play D&D or have access to a D20 or have ever heard of one. Okay, actually that sounds completely far-fetched and ridiculous. And actually quite a lot of people know that you can say the name of your smartphone assistant, I'm obviously not going to give an example, and then say roll a D20 and they'll do it. Oh, I don't even need to guess. I know he said that they want to move away from luck and towards player decision and play skill. And then he's going to say blah, 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 ridiculous gaslighting fluff piece, and then we did it anyway. All right, let's see. It says, there was a lot of talk about whether adding die rolling to a black-bordered product was a good idea. There we go. The biggest concern was that it adds variance in a loud way, and for the players more focused on competitive play, it feels like it lessens skill. Boom! He admitted it. It moves away from skill and towards luck, so that it's not the best player winning, it's the luckiest player winning, which there's plenty of games like that. Magic should not be one of them. And then he says, oh, there's a lot of skill in reacting to variance. Oh, shut up. Oh, look, they pulled Blood Moon. How am I going to react to it? By flipping the table over and punching them in the face. Like, what do you mean you're going to outskill your way out of the fact that they got some bullshit suck-out draw that ended the modern game? Well, there's still like 4 paragraphs here, so I bet he's going to say something about how, like, it's not like game-ending or, like, unbelievably powerful if you roll really high. Because it wasn't. I pointed that out in 2 of my other videos, so he has to mention it here. I mean, there's a lot more text. Let's see, he says... the solution to this problem was twofold. One was, oh, here we go, right? I didn't think it would be the next damn sentence, jeez. One was being careful about the delta, which is difference, if you're Latin, of differences between, Greek or what, shut up, between the rolls. No matter what you roll, the cards mostly do the thing the card is supposed to do, but you just get, you know, like a little bit more powerful or less powerful version of it. Also, now see, this I didn't expect. He says they steered the mechanic away from highly competitive cards and put them on more casual, fun, or draft, or sealed cards. Delina's in every deck and she's tier 1, you dumbass. So let me just point that one out there. Delina is an anomaly, okay? She needs to be stopped immediately. That card is a disgrace to the game. It needs to go. About 3 or 4 times now, I use my, Kidnapper deck to permanently steal / mind control Delina, and the opponent just forfeited on the spot. They looked at my line and they're like, I don't want him to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 of any of those. So I'm out. Your boy's leaving. It's high time I hit the old dusty trail. Next up, he says, as to your second issue, we always keep in mind the logistics of adding extra game pieces. Whenever possible, we like to provide those game pieces inside the booster, is obviously tokens, using things like tokens and punch-out cards. That's right, punch-out cards. Through market research, we have found 2 types of outside game pieces that players generally seem okay with us using. First are counters, so in other words, dice. I was going to say second is dice. It's the same damn thing. I think this is primarily because it simply asks for a small object. Everybody has a small object. You could use change. I mean, come on. That's actually, we used to use change in our pockets for Pokemon back in like 99. And whether you bring glass beads or just use the... God. You guys are going to think that I'm reading ahead. Or use the change in your pocket. I assure you I'm not reading ahead. That's just universally what people do. This isn't that big of an ask. Second are dice. Dice are so core to gaming that most Magic players easily have access to dice. So I do believe I mentioned that earlier. Many players, in fact, regularly bring dice with them to handle things like counters and producing random results. I brought my own custom dice to play Risk. Yeah, they're made out of solid quartz and other ones are gold-plated. Your boy came to play. You might as well just forfeit right now. Give up the world, because I'm already into that dictator shit. I mean, you think Saddam didn't have freaking gold-plated ass dice? Bin Laden had whole seasons of anime, dude. Anyway, he says, yeah, specifically 20-sided dice when most people who play Magic have spin downs. He didn't say that, but I'm adding it because he should have said that. It's a little more of a D&D specific thing, but he's like, whatever. Did I not just say that he was going to say that? Where he's like, so we decided it was okay. That's his justification, is that, oh well, nothing. He has no justification. Next up, I'm interested in this. This is a really good article. Can flavor words be a permanent thing? People didn't like them, but the people who did like them really liked them. I mean, if you're going to have like a new character, a new interesting legendary permanent, character in the story, and you want to give them like a special, like old school 90s anime, or honestly right up till today, I'm going to shout out the name of my attack before I use it, and then people are like, ooh, they named it this cool thing. Ooh, Solar Flare, Final Flash, Kaioken, although that actually is factually what it was called. Krillin's disc thing. That's the official term, right? Krillin's disc thing? Destruction disc? Is that what it... now I gotta Google that. I was so close. Destructo disc, but I spelled it with a C instead of a K because I'm not a caveman, so I'm gonna give myself an A-. Okay, I both do and don't know what Mark is gonna say about this. If it was his idea, he's gonna say that it was great and they're gonna do it again. If it wasn't his idea, he's going to lean into the fact that the community as a whole did not like it. Because he's Mark. So flavor words are the italicized words before an ability that... I'm glad he actually said this, because even I didn't explain it. That tells you flavorfully what the ability represents. The reason... one more thing popped in my head. He's probably going to... If he dumps on him, he's going to say that it's too many words to fit on the cards, and they already have trouble fitting enough words on the cards. And that's going to be his justification for getting rid of something that people didn't like. Instead of actually saying that people didn't like it. Nowhere in there is he going to say people didn't like it. No way in hell. Even if he didn't like it, even if it wasn't his idea, he's still not going to say it. Okay, the reason they were so valuable in the D&D set is because it's hard sometimes to make people realize when they're trying to capture something specific, or when you're trying to capture something specific. That makes sense, actually. With like some of the stuff, you're like, oh, it's that effect. Otherwise, you'd have to put 2 and 2 together yourself if they didn't, like, really name it for you. And I'm hardcore D&D, and I probably would have only caught 80 or 90% of them. So that actually makes sense. Now I'm kind of on the side of it. We can use the name, art, and flavor text as efficiently as possible, but we found that, like, literally putting the flavor words on the card were often needed to help solidify what we were doing from the D&D world. I actually kind of paraphrased and then read it my own way because I didn't like the way he wrote it. But he said normal Magic sets don't have this need nearly as strongly. Okay, so he's actually going like a logical route. Like he actually has reasons for this. I'm surprised. So in other sets, we build the flavor to match the game's needs, so I don't think it's going to be a staple, evergreen thing in normal Magic sets. I do believe, however, that it's going to be a valuable tool in Universes Beyond. Okay, I knew he was going to say that. Like D&D, we're trying to capture a property not designed to be shown off on Magic cards, so, like Lord of the Rings, we're probably going to see it like crazy. I don't even remember if that's a full set or a secret lair. I think they said it's a full set. Do we have all of 2021 leaked at this point? It's going to be Lord of the Rings, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It's going to be Corset 2023 or whatever the hell. And then we're going to have Dominaria United. And actually, I'm half joking. Some of those might get shifted to 2023. But this, like, usually the names of the upcoming stuff is the best kept secret ever. In fact, they leaked the name of Ixalan, but it was spelled slightly differently. It was Atlazan. And then, like, they changed it by the time it came out. So we didn't, I mean, all we knew was the name, and then also we didn't know the name, and we didn't know anything about it. So usually we get blindsided when they tell us the whole next year. And by the way, they already hinted that the whole next year's announcements are coming up really soon. So subscribe if you don't want to miss it, because I'm going to cover that the second it comes out. So he says, yeah, they don't intend to ever do this again in the Magic multiverse unless they have a good reason. Okay, duh. Next up, we've got, considering we most likely will not return to Forgotten Realms, where would we go the other time? That other place? The E1? What's the E1? The one with the Caneth and the steam-powered shit. Is that just the Forgotten Realms? Anyway, there's two major planes, so it's like, I don't know if he's just assuming that if we go back to D&D, we'll go to the other place. Wait, which one has Elminster? Because I'm confused, because on DDO, Dungeons & Dragons Online, back in the day, they added in the other one, and then we went there and saw all their cool stuff. Anyway, he says, considering we probably won't return to the Forgotten Realms, maybe it just means D&D in general, why did you make venture into the dungeon so parasitic? Parasitic mechanics are okay if, I don't know what that means, if you plan to return, but on a one-off plane, it seems like a bad idea. This is an incredibly stupid question to the point where I almost want to skip the answer, but it's the last one. I guess I'll cover it. I mean, he already answered it. I can tell by the bold headings that I accidentally read here because I'm speed read. He just completely shuts this guy down because he's completely wrong. If you add to venture in the dungeon, it'll get too powerful. So they made it as a one-off the way that they had to make it mathematically and logically. So calm your tits. I was actually just reading the first line that Mark wrote. Just kidding. Oh, here we go. Get the popcorn. I'm reading this bitch. To answer your question, I need to begin by addressing several false assumptions interwoven into the question. Actually, okay, it's implied that he wrote that. Before I do that, though, let me first define what a parasitic mechanic is. Please do. I've never heard that term. It's for the readers that may not have heard this term before. Yeah. It's probably another thing that Reddit made up and nobody knows what it means. A parasitic mechanic is a mechanic that's only useful when interacting with other cards from the same set. Oh, so in other words, everything they do. Just kidding. I mean, it would be like the polar opposite would be devotion. Devotion works with colors. Well, every other set has colors. You know, there you go. So that would be non-parasitic. So it's the opposite of backwards compatible. That is, okay, whatever. I just explained it better than you did. Shut up. So with that in mind, assumption number one, parasitic mechanics are only okay if you plan to return to the world. Yeah, why would that be a thing? And plus, they usually reintroduce them like vehicles and crewing. Yeah, because that was so popular. Anyway. Okay, so he goes to assumption number one, parasitic mechanics are only okay if you plan to return to the world. Parasitic mechanics can be very fun. For example, slivers. He could have just said tribal, okay? He could have just said self-contained tribal, not like warriors, but like something that's specific to the plane. Not specifically the S word. I thought the S word was spear chucker. Shut up. Shout out to my Boondocks fans. So I don't even need to read his explanation. Yeah, you can do a one-off thing that's self-contained and then go nuts with it, and then you don't have to worry about it completely destroying Modern and Commander, you dumbass. Mark wrote it slightly more politely, and then assumption number two, venture into the dungeon is parasitic. I mean, it pretty much is. I'd like to hear him defend this. Let me start by saying parasitism is more of a scale. Oh, God, is this not the most liberal gaslighting? Oh, 1 is 2 and up is down and 1 plus 2 equals 7 and nothing is true and everybody has their own truth. And just like liberalism doesn't have a sliding scale, you're either out of your damn mind and don't understand society or math or logic or how anything works, or you're a dumbass, aka liberal. Black and white, no gray area here, bitch. It either is self-contained or it isn't. $10 says he probably mentions vehicles and crewing, which escaped the set, thus making parasitic a sliding scale, but that was a mistake and everybody hated it. So it's either self-contained or it's not. Well, then the assumption number 3 is that we're never returning, and he already answered that. So that's the end of that one. So yeah, he had to point out one dumbass at the end there. So good job there, Mark. I bet number 2 is going to be a dumbass parade because he pretty much hit on every single commonly asked question and the most asked ones and the ones that we wanted to know the most. I cannot wait for part 2. I might even make it later today. Although, holy shit, I built a deck even more offensive than the one I've been streaming for like the last month, and I'm going to try and stream it tonight. So Wait till y'all see that. Holy shit. So, once again, hit subscribe and turn on notifications if you specifically don't want to miss my live streams. Otherwise, on this channel, there's really no reason to turn on notifications. I upload daily. Is that a surprise to anybody? I mean, it's almost even the same time every day. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.